Hey, this video is for shotgun enthusiasts who want to try a slightly exotic round, similar to the wax slug a lot of people are familiar with, the waxer. The whole idea behind a wax slug or a waxer is to take this number 7.5 or 8 or 7 shot, this small BB shot, and bind it together with something like crayon wax, candle wax, or a special blend of wax, so that it reaches the target in one mass, and when it gets inside it blows apart. Mostly you would want to do this with inexpensive 25-cent Target rounds like you get from Walmart, because it turns it into something that's equivalent of a high brass, almost like a slug or breaching round. And it's not as accurate, okay? It's not as accurate as a fostered slug that'll spin through the air, and it can spiral around after 30 yards or so. It might start whooping around. So it's not a long range round. It's more of a fun round. Shoot at jugs or things you want to blow up. Probably would be a pretty effective home defense round too, considering that you'd probably be 10, 15 feet away from whatever you're shooting. So anyway, you got the low brass, you got the high brass. I happen to have quite a few high brass hulls from when I ran out of shells and I was still testing tools and stuff. Because I test all my tools before I send them out, these little shell preppers. They open up the end of the shell like a can opener, and they leave the crimp bead intact, and that secures the wad. If you just clip these off with your pen knife or your utility knife or however you do it, or a clipper, clamshell type clipper or something like that, the wad inside can get loose. Okay, not so much so with these high brass, but with the target loads, they're very slippy and loose. And if you just put wax in there, it is possible that if these were in a tubular magazine and you shucked one into the chamber, that you could send the wad somewhat down the chamber. It might get loose and go whoosh. At that point, you've got a gap, and when you fire this hull, it's going to blow your barrel up. So I developed a tool that leaves the crimp bead intact so you can load with anything. It's safe. But if you have a hinky looking round like this one and you want to load it, I would recommend hot glue. And plus, if you don't feel like heating up wax, you don't want to get the spoon and the pot out, and you don't want to sit there and watch it, make sure it doesn't fume and all that good stuff, this is a good way to load a few rounds. I wouldn't say you would want to load a box of 100 this way. It would take you a while, but you won't get burned, you won't make any smell, and it's very easy to clean up after yourself. You don't have a big operation zone. Okay, the way I would do this, okay, I'll show you how I've been doing it. I think this is a really strong hitting round too, by the way, is you fill the bottom of the cup about a third of the way up the hull. So you're about a third of the way up the capacity, and you just scoop the whole thing full of shot like this till it's right up to the top, and you push down and you use this shot up at the top that's nowhere near the hot glue, so you're not going to burn yourself, and you push the other into the hot glue. See how much I push that down? Now when I dump this out, you'll be really surprised how much that glue has squished up. That's bound almost half of the hull by pushing the glue up into the spaces around the BBs. Okay, and then you do the same thing again. Not so much glue this time, just enough to cover what you got there. Okay, scoop again, right? Push again, same thing. And the glue isn't going to get up into your fingers. Just a little bit of glue there, and it's getting pushed up in between all these BBs. And then what I do is I make sure I dump out anything that's loose. Right? You can look at how full that is now. Okay, it's almost there. Now I just put a little bit more, just a little bit, just to get the last bit, and I drop some in there on the top like that, and I push down. You don't want so much glue that it comes out on your fingers. If you do it just right, you'll totally load this shell right up to the top. Okay, any hot glue that gets on the outside, you just wait for it to cool, you can just peel it right off of there. It's no problem. Now right now I've got no loose pellets, and I'm below the level of my hull, so I don't have to worry about primer strikes. And now I put a cabochon of hot glue on top, like a little dome, okay, by making like a circle around it. And you just make sure it touches, it doesn't go over the sides, and you get something like this. Loading high brass, not that you would need to, because these are pretty expensive and there's really no reason to be cutting these open and reloading them. But if you're doing it, this is the way I would do it. Once again, I start with a lake of hot glue. Right? Now these are only supposed to hold 9 pellets. It says it right on the outside of the hull. So do not put more than 9 pellets. And I put 3 at a time. And there's 3. Right, this is when you could, if you had something like a pen or pencil, you could poke down into it, but you don't really need to. Now I cover them, and I put 3 more, and they will arrange themselves in alternate triangles. They just arrange themselves in alternate triangles, or just by their shape. That's what they do. They're in a circle, they're spheres, they're going to go into little triangles if you put them in. So, put 3 more. Okay. Do not put more than 9 pellets if it's a 9 pellet hull. I'm telling you, just don't do it. Okay. You don't want to overload the weight of any of these. You don't have to worry about that with the target rounds because the hot glue is going to take up space. But on these hulls, because there's so much Grex in there, so much particulate matter that buffers the shot, controls its flight pattern, that, you know, there's some space in there because they load them a certain way with Grex in between all of them. Okay, so now you're done. That's it. And like I said, any glue that's on the outside, just wait for it to cool. You can just roll it right off of there. Well, I hope that was pretty informative and give you some options. Okay, some options for what you can do when you want to load an exotic round like that. Now imagine, that could be any material you want. It could be little golden fish hooks, it could be little tiny carpet tacks, it could be needles, but whatever you want, man. But lead is going to go the furthest, and it's going to create the most damage when it hits, you know. That's pretty much been proven if you've seen any of Tough Fighter Mouse's videos. Man, it's really hard to beat just basically lead smacking a target. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for supporting Mountain Storm with your wax slug tool purchases. You can reach me at rw_keeton@yahoo.com. And if you like this sort of thing, subscribe to my channel. You can leave a comment.